I was going to water my plants anyway today, and I thought it would be just different and fun if I filmed while I was watering them, while also talking about a topic, just to like switch it up and just try different camera angles and really just to explore this creative path that I've been on lately. I always love to water the plants every week. It's always like it's just a really grounding practice to connect with them and to just like give them love and to feel their love back. So yeah, why don't you come along with me while I give the plants some water and while I clean them up a little bit. I was thinking about like how I take care of my mental health as an autistic person. And I've kind of been on this like mental health journey for a really long time now. And not really by choice, but more because it was almost like forced on me. I've really struggled with my mental health for pretty much the majority of my life. And I felt like, especially when I was a teenager, I really had to find ways to be able to support myself. And at this time, I didn't even know that I was autistic. Also, while we're talking about it, or while I'm showing you around the house, I made this fun little painting the other day with some trees and some amanita mushrooms, but I need to move it so I can get to the plants back here. And so I feel like in some ways I have really found the things that help my mental health, and I think that it is honestly a pretty good thing at such a young age to have, I guess, like all these tools and just like these different things that I know that I can do to help my mental health. And so let's start with one of those things, and that is always making sure that I do some sort of meditation practice every day. Now, most of the days it's going to be my like 5 to 10 minute morning meditation. I usually will find like just like a simple piano playlist on Spotify. I love meditating to piano. I don't know what it is, but it always calms me and always relaxes me. And I will do that for about 5 to 10 minutes, just focusing on my breath and getting my mind right for the day. And that's pretty much like a non-negotiable because it helps me figure out like what is going through my mind that day and what are my thoughts? What is circulating through my brain? What are some things that I'm anxious about? What are some things that I need to be a little bit more mindful of? And this is something that I've been doing for, gosh, probably like 8 years now. And it's been pretty much consistently every single day. And that's like my number one non-negotiable for my mental health. But there are some other things that I do on like a basis of when I feel like I need it, which is going outside, getting into nature. I love nature. I love plants, as you can see, and just being able to connect with all the plants in nature, just hearing like the birds chirping and the wind whistling through the trees and just feeling the sun on my face is always something that I guess it just like gives me perspective, and it widens my perspective quite a bit. I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in the constraints of our minds and to feel like our anxieties or the things that we're worried about are the only thing that exists in all of reality, when it's actually a very small portion. And while our worries and anxieties and fears are valid, they aren't the whole truth. And just being in nature, existing amongst like different life forms and just like seeing how divinely perfect everything is set up in nature and how everything flows, it helps kind of just like bring me back to this place of it's gonna be okay. It is okay. Because I know that whatever created this, whatever flows through all of this, created me and also flows through me. And it just reminds me that I am supported and that my fears aren't as big as they seem. And something else that is part of my daily routine, but also something that I do on just like if I need it sort of basis, is making sure that I exercise and move my body. Now, I try to go to the gym 6 times a week just because it's something that I love. I love the feeling of just lifting weights. It always feels really grounding in my body. But then there might be days where that actually does sort of overstimulate me, where I feel like I don't really have the capacity to exercise in a gym. And while rare, it does happen. And those are the days where I might need to focus a little bit more on other forms of movement. Stretching, walking, even just like dancing or listening to my favorite music, maybe jumping on the trampoline. And I always find that any form of movement, just like being in nature, it gets me out of like an anxious mindset. It helps get me out of my overthinking and over analytical mind, and it just brings me back to my body. It brings me back to the present moment, and it makes, once again, it makes my anxiety and it makes my fears seem smaller than they once felt prior to doing that activity. The next one is probably one that you've already heard before, and I know I've talked about it before, and that is seeking out professional mental health help. It's fun to think that we can do it all ourselves, and honestly, the truth is that there are times where we need external help, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there's no shame in that, especially when it comes to our mental health. If we think about it, like our minds pretty much control our entire reality, and if we're not taking care of our minds, our reality is going to feel more difficult than it needs to be. I was hesitant to see a therapist for a while, especially after receiving my autism diagnosis. Like, what if they don't understand me? What if they don't understand the things that I'm saying? What if they just like don't get me? And then of course the anxiety of having to do something new and having to talk to someone new. But I mean it when I say this. Therapy has helped me probably more than anything, and more specifically for me, it was EMDR therapy to really focus on just like some CPTSD that I had, to focus on working through and reprocessing different traumas that I had, to release just a lot of shame that I was holding on to. And I didn't even realize how heavy it felt and how much I was holding on to until I was able to release it. And once I finally did release it, I feel like I have so much more confidence in myself, and I have less of those just like intrusive thoughts that I become obsessive over. And while the intrusive thoughts might still be there and the anxious, worrying thoughts might still be there, I'm less obsessive about it and I'm better able to release it. And I just find that I have more capacity for life, if that makes sense. And of course it didn't get rid of my autism. That wasn't even the goal, and that's not possible. But what it did is it helped with a lot of the things that my brain and just like mentally that I was already struggling with. And it helped me have more capacity to handle more things in life, which is, it's truly a gift, and it has been such a huge gift. And so if you've been struggling with your mental health and you're feeling like you're kind of at a a point where you just don't know what to do next, or you are feeling kind of hopeless, like you've tried everything, it might be time to reach out and talk to a professional about this. And if the first therapist you talk to, if you feel like you don't really vibe with them, or if you feel like they didn't really understand you, there's nothing wrong with ending that that relationship with them and seeking out another therapist. And I think that that's why some people like might be opposed or just like fearful of starting therapy. Like, what if they don't understand me? What if they don't get what I'm trying to say? That's okay. They might not, but there's like so many other great, amazing therapists out there. And it might also be helpful to find one who might be neurodivergent themselves, or who has a lot of background in neurodiversity and autism. I feel like those things aren't as known and understood as much as they should be in the professional mental health space. But that doesn't mean that there aren't therapists out there who do get it and who do understand it. And when I did learn of my autism diagnosis, and when I started learning more about what it means to me and how it affects me and things like that, I also found that a really helpful way to support my mental health is by understanding my sensory needs and how I sensory seek. And this kind of goes back to the movement thing that I mentioned. For me, I'm a proprioceptive sensory seeker. I love feeling like the weights when I'm lifting them. I love laying on hard surfaces. I like tight things around me. I like weighted blankets on me. And by understanding my sensory joys, which include proprioception, and which also include things like watching running water, or like feeling running water through my hands, weighted blankets, lifting weights, different like lights, or watching different lights. Those are some ways that help me soothe, and things that help me regulate in a way that is like specific to my autistic brain. And I also find that that's really helpful if I've had like a really dysregulating day where I do feel like I'm going to burn out. Just like understanding what I need to do in order to regulate has been really helpful for me too. And there's like different like things online that you can look at to kind of understand like what your sensory profile is, to try to get a better understanding of that. That's another thing that's been really helpful for me. It is kind of crazy as I am thinking of these different ways that I support my mental health. It's like I've almost done all these things without even realizing that they are specific things to help my mental health. Like I said, I think it's just because I was really, really struggling when I was younger, and I needed to find healthy things to do in order to cope with it. And these things have become such like a huge part of my daily routine that they pretty much are second nature. And so I think the last tip that I have to share is creating some sort of like mental health routine, and making those things part of your daily routine, and making sure that the things that you're doing to support your mental health are things that are like actually enjoyable for you. They might require a little bit of effort and a little bit of work, but it's not going to be sustainable, and it's not going to help you in the long run if you're constantly dreading doing these things. And so maybe there were a few from the list that I gave, or maybe it gave you a few ideas of things that you can do in your life to support your mental health. And start like incorporating those into your routine. I know for me, with my autism, my routine is like, it's my everything pretty much. I like so much to be in my routine because it helps me regulate, it helps give me a sense of predictability. And so to adjust your routine might be a little bit challenging at first. And so maybe start small, start with like one thing that you feel like, okay, this is something I enjoy, and this is something that's really helpful for me, whether it's something that helps me like regulate my nervous system or just help me feel more grounded. And start scheduling that into your days. I don't know if you do this, but I write down like a list of every single day of what I need to do. And so maybe like add it to your morning routine, or add it to like when you're home from work, or like in the middle of the day. Whenever you can fit just like one small thing into your routine that is going to be supportive of your mental health, that's going to help you feel just like more calm and more collected for the day. And just see how that goes after a few weeks. And I think that once it does become part of your routine, it will be easier to find more things and more ways to support your mental health. But I think most importantly, the main thing that I want you to understand is, I think the fact that you're even here watching this video about different ways to support your mental health is already a huge step in the right direction. You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to work on yourself, and if you didn't know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel that you're experiencing right now. So I really hope that you gained something from this, even if it was only like one thing from my list, or if you had an idea pop in your head while I was giving my lists. And so if you have any other ideas or tips or ways that you can support your mental health as an autistic person, I'd love if you could share it in the comments below. It will help all of us out.